Namaste and welcome to Jagruti 2021. I hope you've enjoyed everything so far. My name's Priya and I'm going to be your host for Ready Steady Cook. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Niti and Rajvi, sorry. Niti Ji began her journey in health while studying nutrition, media and communication at Queensland University of Technology in Australia. After graduating from university, Niti travelled to India and studied at the world-renowned Vaidya Garma and Ayurvedic healing village in South India. She learned the basic concept of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic nutrition under the guidance of Dr. Ramdas. She returned to Brisbane and joined Back to Health, one of the leading Ayurvedic clinics in the country, and now her new home in England. She delivers workshops, open days, expos and coaching demonstrations to encourage more and more people to embed Ayurveda into their lives. Rajvi is a medical student from Queen Mary University, London, and she's also the president of their Hindi Society. Just a quick note, please note that this session is being recorded and will be later uploaded to the NHSF UK's YouTube channel and for more people to enjoy afterwards. If you do not wish to be recorded, please contact me in the chat and we will make note of this. So over to you, Rajvi.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. So thank you, Niti Ji, for joining us this evening. We hope to bring you guys some great conversation about Ayurveda, what inspired Niti Ji to join the field, and she can give us some tips and tricks of how we can include Ayurveda in our day-to-day lifestyles. And we're going to be doing a cook along with her. We're going to be making a stir fry with rice. So you guys can watch along, hopefully remember the recipe, which we can hopefully post so you can make it yourselves as well. So Niti Ji, let's get started. So tell us about why you wanted to join Ayurveda and your journey.
Okay, thanks, Rajvi. And I'm also really excited to just learn now that you're a medical student. So hopefully we can have a nice conversation paralleling both Ayurveda and, I guess, Western health. So in university, I did nutrition and media and communication, as Priya was saying. And in my final year, I sat in on a 1-hour seminar on Ayurvedic nutrition. It wasn't through uni, it was through an external organization. And it just made sense. 1 hour hearing about Ayurveda, hearing about how they explain nutrition, the different doshas, energies, and it just all fell into place really nicely. And I thought, if I could understand a little bit of this amazing science in just 1 hour, imagine if I was able to dive a little bit deeper. The thing I found with Western science is that it was very detail oriented. You have to learn about, vitamin A, B, C, D, how much to take, what happens if you take too much, what happens if you don't take enough, signs and symptoms. Whereas with Ayurveda, once you learn the basic principles, once you understand how our body and the world around us works, you can apply these principles to literally every scenario. So I decided to study Ayurveda a little bit further, if not for anything, just for my personal interest, for friends and family. And before I knew it, it's now my career. I can't imagine doing anything else. I'm very grateful to be able to work in this field. I have a little massage clinic. I'm an Ayurvedic therapist, so I do a lot of massage and hands-on work in Crawley, just near Gatwick Airport. But I love talking about Ayurveda, and yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the principles of Ayurveda. You might have heard of it before. It's becoming really popular as yoga is increasing in popularity, and people want to find out about what dosha they are. Am I Vata? Am I Pitta? Am I Kapha? So Ayurveda sees the world through these three lenses, of the doshas, or I like to call them energies to make them a little bit more understandable. And what they are is they're a reorganization of the 5 elements. So the 5 elements being earth, water, fire, air, and ether, or space. So when you combine air and ether, you get Vata. When you combine fire and water, you get Pitta. And when you combine earth and water, you get Kapha. Now, all of these energies, they exist in us, inside of us, and they also exist outside in the environment. We just have to learn to look at them. And they're not just physical energies, but they're also quite subtle energies. So when somebody says, I'm very Kapha, it may mean in their physical body they are Kapha, but in their mind they could be Pitta. You may have differences. Now, when people are always asking, what's my dosha? Am I Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? what they're trying to understand is their prakriti, or what they were born with. And this is something that we can't change. We get it at conception. It happens as a result of our parents' prakriti, how our mother was during her pregnancy, and the seasonal routine that she carried out. And our prakriti is something that we can't change. But what happens as we go through life is we get subjected to different scenarios. We eat foods that aren't suitable for us. We go through experiences that we haven't processed properly. And because of that, we manifest in a state of imbalance. And that's our vikriti. So sometimes when people are filling out questionnaires or quizzes to try and find out their dosha, they'll be like, I did 10 different ones and I came up with 10 different results. What am I? Because often when we're filling out those questionnaires, we fill them out as we are feeling right now. And that may not be a true reflection of who we are as at birth. So rather than try to find out our prakriti or our inherent nature, I think it's more important to try to find out where you are right now, what imbalances you manifest, and then you will know better how to correct them and bring yourself back into balance. Now, with these doshas, no one is better than the other. Each of them have their particular roles and responsibilities in the body. When you learn your dosha, when you understand what you are, mind, body, behavior, you just become so much more in flow. You're more productive. You're happier. You're healthier. Everyone is not the same, and that's something that Ayurveda really stresses. Western health, somebody might try a raw food diet and it works for them. So they write a book and they sell it for, to millions of people. And everyone's like, yeah, raw food diet or the paleo diet or the keto diet. So just because it worked for a few people doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. What food suits me may not be the same foods that suit you. And so Ayurveda really emphasizes it. It's not a one-size-fits-all healthcare approach, but you're looking at the individual, looking at all of the factors that make up that individual, their lifestyle, their upbringing, what they've gone through, what they eat, what they do, and then you can better provide them healthcare. But that being said, some people ask, okay, if it's a very individualized healthcare, how can we categorize people into Vata, Pitta, Kapha? Where does that fit in? Because that is grouping people. But the sages, Ayurveda is over 5,000 years old, and it was given to us by the sages. And what they did is they identified certain patterns in nature, and then they sort of codified it, categorized it, and they gave it to us in terms of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So then we use that knowledge to try and understand, okay, if I'm feeling in a particular way, what should I do? What should I eat? How should I live? Now, at the crux of everything Ayurvedic related is your digestion. Anytime you go see an Ayurvedic doctor or physician for whatever thing, whether it's arthritis, whether it's diabetes, whether it's hormonal imbalance, first of all, they'll ask you, how is your digestion? Because in Ayurveda, our Agni, or our digestion, is the key to good health. You have good digestion and you have good health. Now, oftentimes we think of digestion as just what we put in our mouths, because our digestive system are those particular organs, right? Your stomach, your pancreas, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, large intestine. But digestion also means what we take in through the other four senses. So what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling? And what are we touching? How are we processing that? So when we think of digestion, try not to think of what I'm just eating, but also what I'm taking in through my other four senses. The main job of digestion is to figure out what we've eaten or figure out what we've taken in and decide whether it's going to nourish our body and therefore to be kept, or whether it's not going to nourish our body and therefore eliminated as toxins. And where most of our problems come is we eat things, our body eliminates that which it shouldn't, the nutrients, and it keeps that which, eliminates that, which it shouldn't, and it keeps that also which it shouldn't. It keeps the waste, it keeps the toxins. And as toxins manifest, that's when you get a buildup of ill health in the body. And that's where it all starts. Any Ayurvedic condition, it starts because your digestion is not working well. Whether it's, like I mentioned before, diabetes, arthritis, constipation, headaches, you'll always look to your digestion first. So then a lot of people ask me, okay, how do I identify good digestion? What does it mean? How can I tell if my digestion's good or bad? So there's quite a few signs and symptoms that you should sort of like tick off. Are you having at least one bowel movement every day? Between 1 to 3 is ideal. Some people naturally have 3, some people will have 1. After you eat, how do you feel? Do you feel satisfied? Do you feel energetic? Do you feel clear-minded? Or do you feel like lethargic? After we've had a massive, maybe Diwali feast or birthday meal, we just like want to sit back and not do anything for 3 hours, just have a siesta. That's not what we should feel like after we have eaten something. That's a sign of poor digestion. When we burp, can we taste the previous meal, or is it a clear burp? Do we have a hunger or an appetite? A lot of the times we eat because, oh, it's a meal time, or I'm going to be late, so therefore I should eat now. But you should eat when you feel that real hunger from within. So these are just some of the signs and symptoms of having a good digestion. And if you don't have all of them, or if there's something that's not quite right, then you need to look at how to correct your digestion. So everything that you see any Ayurvedic practitioner promote, it will all be tailored towards, okay, let's have easily digestible food. That's why Ayurveda will always favor cooked foods with well-spiced, healthy fats, just to make that process of digestion easier. And we see that in Ayurveda, you're not what you eat, you are what you digest. Your digestion is like the engine of a car. So you might have, a really fancy car and an engine, but it's rusty. So no matter what type of oil you put in that engine, it could be the best top A grade oil. If you have a rusty engine, that oil is going to be of no use. So the same with us. If our digestion is not working properly, doesn't matter what food we eat, whether it's organic, biodynamic, locally grown, sattvic, filled with prana, all of these key buzzwords. If our digestion isn't working well, all of these foods are not going to benefit us. So everything in Ayurveda will always be tailored towards digestion. And one of the meals that you're going to cook today, Rajvi, is easy to digest, very quick to make, and also easy to digest. So Rajvi, do you have any questions for me so far?
I think that was very, very interesting. And whenever I've heard about Ayurveda, everything has always been like digestion. What you eat, you have to digest it well. And lots of things that I've read have always been about eating at a certain time, or like you said, eating when you're hungry and making sure that you don't feel very, very full after, because it's not a good feeling to have. And like you've explained now, that actually it's a sign of poor digestion. And I think one question I have is how can we go about adding Ayurveda to our lifestyle? So with the digestion, are there certain types of foods or things that we can include in our diet?
Okay, sure. So before we go to digestion, one way that I can help you incorporate a little bit more about Ayurveda into your life is if you look at Ayurvedic nutrition. It's not just about what you eat, but it's also about how you eat it, right? So yes, the food we eat, that's going to impact us in a certain way, whether it's going to be of benefit or harm to us, but also how we eat. Are we eating while we're working on the computer? Are we eating while we're watching a TV show? Are we eating while we're scrolling on Instagram? Are we eating on the go, like in the car because we're running late somewhere? Eating should be a mindful practice. So when you eat, that's all you should be doing, not eating and doing something else. The second point about nutrition is, why are you eating? So I mentioned before, are you eating because you're hungry? That's why you should eat all of the time. Some people say, should you eat 3 meals a day or should you eat 5 small meals a day? It's different. Some people need 5 small meals a day because that's how their digestion works. Some people need 3 timely meals a day. Some people can live fine just off 2 or even 1 good meal a day, and a light snack or something at either end of the day. So think about why you're eating, not because it's a meal time, not because society dictates that you should have your lunch at 12:30 and you should have your dinner at 5:30, 6 o'clock, or because you've read that breakfast is the best start to the day. If you're not hungry for breakfast, don't eat it. It's as simple. Actually, babies are the most healthy human beings because when they need to eat, they cry and we feed them. When they need to poo, they poo. When they need to pee, they pee. But as adults, we suppress all of these urges growing up and we ignore these signs that our body is telling us. Okay, we might be hungry, but I'm not going to eat because I'm going to miss my bus. Or I need to go to the bathroom, but if I go now, I'm going to be late for the meeting. And we will, before we know it, we've suppressed our urges so much that that's what will cause our ill health later down the track. So the second point about nutrition is, why are you eating? Also, are you eating because it's there in front of you and maybe your eyes and your tongue want it, but your belly doesn't? It happens to me all of the time. Something's made and it looks amazing, it smells amazing, and I'm like, yeah, let me have it. But my belly is like, no, you're full, you don't need it, right? Are you eating because, it's a family function and it will look bad if you don't eat? Or someone will be like, especially in Indian families, like, oh, eat, eat, eat. That's the sign of like, you love me, therefore you should eat. No, it's not like that. Like, respect your body. When are you eating? So that kind of goes hand in hand. One thing about when, if you want to implement anything about Ayurveda, try and make lunch the biggest meal of the day, right? Our digestion, it moves in sync with the sun. When is the sun at its peak?
12 o'clock noon, or like in the afternoon. Yeah.
12 o'clock. And that's when our digestion is at its peak, and use that to your advantage. Our body moves in certain rhythms, in certain cycles, just as the seasons of the year have certain cycles. And when we learn them and we learn to align ourselves with those cycles, we will be so much healthier and happier. It's like, I always liken it to, if you're swimming from one end of the pool to the other end, you can get there in X amount of time. But if you add flippers to your feet, you get there so much faster. Same thing. If you live your day, live your year in sync with nature and its cycles, you will sort of be a much healthier version of yourself. So if there's anything that you're going to implement, try and have lunch as the biggest meal of the day. Unfortunately, our society has got that backwards, and we emphasize dinner because that's when everyone's at home, everyone's together, birthday dinners and social events and corporate events and family dinners. It's all in the evening. Try and make that for lunch. And where you're eating, that also has a big influence. Like I was mentioning at the beginning, don't eat on the go. Don't eat while you're doing something. Just eat in one place and eat mindfully.
Thank you. I think honestly, and now that you've mentioned it, I recognize that when I'm like scrolling through Instagram or watching TV, when I'm eating, or when I'm rushing, and when I'm like, okay, I need to join another call, I don't feel satisfied after. But when I've sat down and just taken 10-15 minutes to eat, it feels so much more healthier afterwards. And I've heard, is to have the bigger meal at lunch, and I think that's something I'm going to start trying to do. So I'm going to start cooking as well, but let's talk more about, so you said at the beginning as well, how digestion is not only what we eat, but also the things that we like hear, see and touch. Could you go into a bit more detail about that and how we can go around doing that? But before you do that, so I'm going to be starting off by cooking the stir fry. I've already pre-made the rice, but I'll talk you through as I go. You can start though, Niti Ji.
Sure. So digesting what you take in through your other four senses. So if we start with eyesight, what are you seeing? Whether it's your choice of program on Netflix, what you read, what you scroll through on Instagram or social media, how does it serve you? How does it nourish you? Is it making you feel good and inspiring you, or is it making you feel bad about yourself? Is it making you feel bad about others? At one point in time, when I was kind of growing up in school, crime shows were really popular on TV. You had your NCIS and Criminal Minds and CSI, and there was at least 10 different ones. So you imagine if that's what the public is prone to watching, if that's what's popular, what effect is it having on our minds? What effect is it having on our interactions with others? So think about what you're taking in through your eyes and filter it. Now, with any of these practices, through Ayurveda or even within the Vedas, it's not going to be instant gratification. When we watch Netflix, it's like a chill out time, like 20 minutes. I just watch an episode of Friends and I feel good. I feel good for that moment. I'm laughing, I'm drawn into the story. But then afterwards, what did I do with my 20 minutes? I'm not saying not to chill out and unwind, but think about if you're doing it repeatedly and on a daily basis. So any of these Ayurvedic practices, you might not get that instant satisfying result that you do with modern day practices because it takes time, right? Anyone that comes to me for a consult, I always explain to them, that the state of ill health that they're in, it didn't happen overnight, unless it was trauma or an accident. It happened over months, maybe even years. So don't expect healing to happen overnight. Allow it to take time. What you hear, are you hearing gossip about other people? Are you, what music are you listening to? What podcasts are you listening to? In the same way as what you take in through your eyes, try to make what you take in through your ears nourish, inspire you, and uplift you, rather than sort of create more doubt about yourself, about others, in your mind, and things like that. Touch. How are you experiencing touch? In Ayurveda, one of the daily self practices is called Abhyanga, or a self massage. And the word in Sanskrit for oil means sneha, which is also the same word for love. So the act of self massage is an act of self love. Literally, that's what it means in Sanskrit. So allow yourself that positive and loving touch. Make sure wherever you are, you're not subjected to any harmful touch. And then the last one is smell. In the same way, these are more subtle sensations, because we don't always think about it. What are you smelling on a daily basis? Are those scents of natural origin, or are they very artificial, heavily chemical based? So think about all of these things. And what happens, and even what you take in, all of what you take in through your senses. So what you take in through your mouth, it goes down to your digestive system. But what you take in through your other senses, it generally goes to your mind, and you start to create experiences and impressions. So yes, you may have taken in something that doesn't serve you, but then learn to process that. Learn to deal with it, talk about it, write about it, express it. So you're not holding on to that negativity. You're not holding on to something that's pulling you down, but you're letting it go. Springtime is really good for that. Letting go all of the, pardon my language, crap from the other seasons, and sort of starting fresh, starting new.
No, I think honestly, now that you mention it, I feel like I've recognized that these are little things that have changed in my life. So I started listening to podcasts in 2020, and I think I'll be honest, I don't end up doing it every day, but when I do, I feel a whole sense of motivation. Like in the mornings when I used to go to uni, I'd start listening to one or two. I might not be able to finish all of them, but I think just that small bit, it helps you feel a lot more nicer. And I think it's because you're adding in.
Someone's at front door.
Sorry, that was mine.
That's okay. Cleaner energy, and I think that's the whole thing that I'm slowly learning, that's very, very important around you. So thank you so much for alluding to all those fantastic things. You did talk about how we should be trying to live our lives.
Try again in a few seconds.
It's okay. In balance with the nature. So how can we do that? Because I think the one way you said was trying to have larger meals at lunch, but otherwise, how can we try and sync our lives with the natural season around us?
Okay, so I'll make it super duper simple. I'll break it down. If we try to attribute a dosha to a certain season, then you can identify, okay, this season is maybe more vata. I should do practices which counteract it, right? So in Ayurveda, like increases like. So if you are experiencing dryness in your body, don't eat dry foods. Don't be in a dry environment. Do the opposite, right? So we'll start with summer. Summer is characteristically hot, and that is pitta season. So don't do things which are going to increase heat in your body. It sounds really simple, but you can take it to your food. Don't eat too much spicy food. Don't have too many red chilies. Have more cooling foods like coriander, mint, fennel. How else? Avoid too many fried or fermented foods. Spend a little bit more time in nature. It's a very cooling environment. If you're busy at uni and studying, take breaks, or at least once a day, try to get out for a walk without your phone, just being in nature, and it's a very cooling energy. Try to find bodies of water near you. That also has quite a nice cooling impact. If we move on to then autumn autumn is a very vata environment. You think of what's happening outside. The trees, the leaves, they're drying, leaves are falling off. The trees are going to shed their leaves in time for winter. Same thing happens to our skin, right? You experience a lot more dryness in the skin. You might experience things like constipation, which is dryness in the body. So increase the amount of oils that you take in internally, and also maybe start with a self-massage, especially for autumn season, just to make sure you're staying hydrated. Drink lots more warming and herbal teas, just to keep lubricated and hydrated from the inside. And then you have winter, which is very characteristically kapha season. So you think about the environment outside. It's gray, it's dreary, it's damp, it's cold. These are all kapha characteristics. And if we do things that are going to exacerbate those feelings inside of us, like winter, yes, you feel like sitting inside and just not doing anything, watching a movie or reading a book and eating all those comfort foods. You can do that, but if you do it too much, you will have excess of kapha. You can, it can become too lethargic, too heavy, too stagnant. So do something that opposes it. Make sure you have adequate spices during winter. Have more hot drinks, herbal teas, things like that. Get your movement in during winter, even though you don't want to. It's something that's going to keep you energized and motivated throughout. You know, it's dark and gray outside. Wear bright colors on the inside. I mean, I'm not a good example today, but we have a yellow wall in our house. So whatever it is outside, we see that wall and it makes us happy. And then you move into spring. So all of the kapha, all of that heavy energy that's accumulated during winter, it's now starting to melt. And spring, that's why you have a lot of seasonal allergies, a lot of runny noses, mucus, things like that. So rather than having foods which are going to increase that kapha quality, kapha is very heavy, cold, moist, mucusy. Don't have foods which are going to increase it, like bananas or avocado or dairy. Try to stay away from them and have more light and warming foods. So I guess that's a simple way that you can try to align yourself with the seasons. Look at what's available in the supermarket. I mean, supermarkets are not the best, but like if you have a local grocery market, you know, that sells food that is seasonal, whatever's cheaper will be in season at that time, right? So use that to guide what you eat.
No, definitely. And I think you touched on a really nice point at the end about like whatever's in like season, you can get it. I think it goes back to like a lot of Indian practice. Like, you know, whenever I travel back home, they'll be like, oh, like it's mango season, you can have this, or we can't have these fruits because it's not in season. And exactly. I think for the past however many years, our ancestors have been subconsciously practicing Ayurveda, which we, I think it's been brought down. And I think coming into the Western world, it's kind of, it got hidden away, but now I think it's coming back again. People are taking a lot more of an interest in it, which is amazing to see. And I think just by all you've explained, very little things you can do can help build it up. And like in medicine, we talk about preventative or health promotion, which is the idea that before you get sick, how can we prevent this? And these are literally just fantastic things that you can do to help to get to that stage. But I will interrupt you there just to say, so what I've done so far is I added a couple of teaspoons of oil to the pan, and I added ginger, waited for it to be aromatic, and then I've added the broccoli in, and I'm now going to add in like the seasoning sauce. So I've got a tablespoon of tamari. So Niti Ji, if someone doesn't have tamari, can they substitute it for like soy sauce or something else?
Yes, soy sauce.
Soy sauce is fine. I've got sriracha hot sauce, corn flour, tablespoon, which you can't really see well, tablespoon of tahini, and a tablespoon of vinegar, rice vinegar, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
So can you talk us through why we're using these ingredients particularly?
So this is not an Ayurvedic dish that's, was given in the textbooks, but it's something, an Ayurvedic meal is something that has all 6 tastes. That is complete Ayurvedic nutrition. So the 6 tastes being sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And these 6 tastes nourish us on a physical level, but also a physiological level as well. Each of the tastes are they're sort of connected to different emotions. And I guess this is a dish that I wanted to share because it's quick, it's easy, it's something that's nourishing as well. I know as students, it can be quite hard to always cook something fresh, but hopefully with this, you'll be able to do that.
I think it's very quick. I think because I've been talking to you through this and listening to you carefully, it's probably taken a little bit longer, but I don't suspect it would take longer than like a few minutes at the very most to do. Exactly.
And you can add different vegetables, like along with the broccoli, you could do carrots, capsicums, pak choy, yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Can I add spinach as well? I love spinach.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Thank you. I think those are the questions that I've had. Does anyone else have, I've got one more question actually. So I think, you know how you talked about having like making sure like your meals, you eat when you're hungry. Sometimes I think because we're so used to like clockwork where we know that in the morning, so we've got breakfast and lunch and then dinner. And I know my mum screams at my brother if he has something at like 5 p.m. because dinner's at 6. When you get hungry and you want to snack, like, is it okay to snack? What do you think? Or can you tell us
if
more?
you're hungry and you want to just honor that hunger, have something that's not going to fill you up too much, like having a piece of fruit. Fruit is best had outside of meals, so try not to mix it with other foods. Some dried fruits, dates, nuts, even like, just because I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner doesn't mean I eat Ayurvedic food all of the time. If you looked in my cupboards, there will be chocolate, there will be biscuits, you know, you'll find all sorts of stuff. The main one thing that I like to emphasize is whatever you're eating, try to make it. I know it sounds hard, like snacks and stuff like that, but that has a big impact on what you're going to eat, because like what you just made, yes, it was really quick, but you made it. You put that love, you put that intention to heal, all of that positive energy into the food, and it goes and it has an impact on your body and it has an impact on how you digest it. There was a Japanese scientist who did an experiment on water, and he subjected one lot of water to really nice classical calming music, and another lot of water he subjected to really heavy metal, hard, harsh music, and then looks beautiful.
Thank you.
And then he sort of analyzed the water crystal structure afterwards, and he found the one that had been subjected to really classical and soft calming music, the crystals produced were really beautiful in shape and structure, very symmetrical. Whereas the ones that had been subjected to heavy metal and hard music, very jagged edges, and I'm not going to say ugly, but very like, you know, asymmetric type figure was formed. So whatever you're going to eat, snacks, try and make it, or eat something that's made by someone else with love, as opposed to buying stuff that's been made by some like a manufacturing plant or something.
Oh no, definitely. I think sometimes like I'll naturally feel whenever we have takeaways, I always feel so bloated afterwards, and it's because I'm sure they made it with love, but it's because they've been like bulk making those things, and it's not the healthiest because they want it to taste that extra good. But when I cook at home, I feel really, really good. So definitely. We've got a question from the audience. They're asking, how can they go about to learn more about Ayurveda? Are there any books or podcasts that you've recommend that we can listen to or read?
Okay. If you find any books by Dr. Vasant Lad, I will. I'm also going to do a shameless plug for my Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I try to share a lot of Ayurvedic content, which you can apply. And yeah, any books by Dr. Vasant Lad. There's one called Ayurveda and the Science of Self-Healing. There's another really beautiful one called Prakriti by Dr. Robert Svoboda. They're two good places to start with for books.
Thank you. I think that's great. I'm also going to shamelessly plug my Instagram. I think because of like last year in lockdown, I started to look into like what helped me in terms of like being very healthy with like the food that I eat. So I've been sharing more of like recipes, but from a medical health perspective of like you said at the beginning, the vitamins, the minerals, and how well it's digested. So you can look follow me on Instagram as well. I think Priya will put both mine and Niti Ji's Instagrams in the comment section below, in the chat box. We've got another question, is that, so lots of people tell us that sugar is very bad for us. What's your opinion on like sugar? How much do you think is reasonable to eat, and is there a way around it perhaps?
You know, one of the reasons people say sugar is really bad for you is because we have sugar in everything. right? It's in things that we wouldn't realize that, you know, that they have sugar in them. A lot of processed foods will have sugar in it, full of preservatives and things like that. We need sweetness in our life. We need sweetness in our diet. And Ayurveda will talk about sugars from natural origins, like jaggery, molasses, honey, maple syrup is something a bit newer, but it's obviously a lot healthier than refined sugars. So I'm not for any restrictive diet. Don't cut sugars out of your diet completely. Have it in moderation. See where you're putting sugar into your diet. If you eat a lot of processed foods or sauces or things like that, have a look at the labels. You'll be surprised to see how much sugar is in a lot of these foods. So it does serve its purpose, but find out what type of sugar you're eating, what's its origin, and yeah, have a look at how you're consuming it. Our diets actually, you know, I was mentioning before the 6 tastes, that's adequate nutrition in Ayurveda. But we tend to favor sweet, salty, and sour in our diet. That's what most of our meals comprise of. We don't really have much of the bitter, pungent, and astringent. So even using that as a guide to see, have I had equal portions of each taste throughout the day, right? So that's my thoughts on sugar.
We've got time for a couple more questions. So 2 questions. One is, so how do you think Western medicine has responded to Ayurveda or alternative medicines? And then I've got one question about vegetarian and vegan diets, which I can ask you after this.
Okay, so Western medicine definitely has its place. One of the authors that I was mentioning, Dr. Robert Swoboda, he really wrote a nice article whether Ayurveda is a complementary or an alternative healthcare. Actually, Ayurveda is not just a preventative healthcare. You know, you were talking about how that's what I like to promote. Giving yourself tips to stop yourself from getting sick. But if you do get sick, Ayurveda has very strict and specific protocol on how to identify that and what to do and how to treat it. But one of the textbooks is organized so nicely that if you follow the first 4 chapters, which is all about daily living and how to conduct yourself, what to eat, seasonal routine, you don't really need the other chapters because you're not going to get sick. But the Ayurveda has outlined specific protocol on diabetes, arthritis, asthma, all of these conditions, and given very specific details on how to identify and diagnose them and what to do to treat them. So Western medicine definitely has its place, especially in crisis-based medicine. You know, if I broke my arm, I'm not going to go to an Ayurvedic doctor. I'm going to go to A&E because I know a cast will fix it. So the problem I find with Western medicine is because it's good for crisis-based events, it goes very easily to quick fixes. Okay, you have a headache, take paracetamol. Very rarely will doctors try to find out why do you have that headache and let's work on the root cause. Whereas Ayurveda will look at the root cause and help you in addressing that. Ayurveda takes into account the whole being of a person, social, physical, emotional, psychological, and then accordingly gives advice. So I think both do work hand in hand, and we should look to. I don't have anything against Western medicine, but I think there are parts of Ayurveda which should be, if they're properly promoted, it can actually take the burden off the current Western medical system model.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm so glad you made that point. It's because I think, like you said, if you've got a headache, that you go see the doctor and they'll say, oh, just take some paracetamol, which some people often don't bother going to the doctors for anymore because it's just, they feel it's a waste of time. And I think, like you said, if Ayurveda is promoted very well and is more education on it, it could actually lift a lot of burdens, because when I've been on placement or we see patients, there's just not enough time to take a full looking into the person as a whole. We're there to just treat that problem. It's a lot of reactive, where we're trying to react to how they act rather than actually being proactive and trying to help them improve their overall health, which I think I'd love to have a conversation with you on another time about how we can balance the both. Just one last question, and then I'll do a very quick taste of the food and we can talk about that. Is so there's been a huge rise now of like vegan diets. Vegetarianism has been around for lots and lots of years. What's your opinion, if you could summarize, of veganism? Is it a healthy diet, the difference between them, and how it impacts with Ayurveda?
Okay, so there's no mention of veganism in Ayurveda. Ayurveda will heavily promote milk and ghee as wonder foods, as superfoods. But the way milk was produced thousands of years ago is very different to the way milk is produced now. So does the milk now have the same qualities as the milk did then? I don't know, probably not all milk. So there is a place for veganism within Ayurveda. You can live an Ayurvedic vegan lifestyle, but just make sure, like a lot of times veganism is like mock meats and plant-based this and plant-based that. And when you look at the ingredients of that product, it's like massive. Try and have more whole foods, whole lentils, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, rather than too many of the processed meat alternatives. That would be my, I guess, take-home message for veganism.
Thank you. We still have loads of questions coming in, but what we'll do is, if possible, we'll take a look at these questions, we'll collate them, and we can ask you, Niti Ji, and then if you provide a response, we can perhaps put it out in our communications to the members after. So I'm just going to take, this is the end product. If you can all see, that's the broccoli and then the rice. I'm going to take a quick try of it. This is Niti Ji's recipe. It's slightly different to my one, but I think it's going to be a stay great. Okay. It's really, really good. I love it. I might actually try and do this now instead of how I used to do it. We've got just a couple minutes left. Someone's just said, can you do Deliveroo, please? If you could give us 3 take-home messages from today, what you think that we should remember the most, that would be fantastic.
Eat your lunch at the biggest meal. Have lunch as the biggest meal of your day. Eat when you're hungry, and just because you're uni students, try to sleep before 10 p.m. The quality of sleep that you get before 10 p.m. is much better than the quality of sleep that you get after 10 p.m. So try and get to bed before 10. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Niti Ji, for coming in and talking to us. This has been a great conversation. I hope you guys have learned some new things. I've definitely learned new things, and now I have some great inspiration of how I'm going to make very small changes, which I think will go a long way. And we've touched upon lots and lots of things. So if you would like more information, please do get in touch and we can try and get Niti Ji to answer them. I'm going to hand over back to Priya, who's going to do the closing remarks.
Sure, everyone's enjoyed that and are now very hungry and very excited to be cooking. So thank you, Niti and Rajvi, for taking today's session, Ready, Steady, Cook, and thank you for attending this session. I believe the timetable should be up. But next up, we have our grand finale budget night at 7 p.m. So please do join along with your friends and family, and you can access all the links via the NHSF.org website, but I will also drop it in the chat so everyone can access it. Thank you.